we are going to be very brave and talk about insomnia, which is a huge topic. Huge, huge topic. I mean, you could have a whole university course on insomnia, yes. I think. So
yes, it's multifactorial.
We're going to try and tackle this because it's also a very big problem where we live.
Yes, it is. So what are some of the things that you think about when a patient comes in and they say that they have insomnia?
Well, I first think, okay, due diligence. I have to make a little note, make sure that they don't have high thyroid, for instance, and then I have to ask them about what we call sleep hygiene.
Yes.
And that includes...
It's a medical word.
Sleep hygiene means, how do you prepare for bed? Do you only sleep in the bedroom, or do you also watch TV and do your taxes in there? That sort of thing. But it also has to do with kind of getting at why you're having trouble. Is your bedroom too hot? Is there noise? Is there a train going by?
Is there a partner snoring?
A partner snoring, that's
a
right.
common one.
Yeah. So some of these things we can go through and make sure there's nothing actually, there aren't any real barriers to sleep. But then you have to say to the person, well, what do you think is happening? What happens to you when you lie down and try to go to sleep? And
right, and if they can't think of anything, I usually ask, do you have trouble falling asleep, or is it staying asleep? Or both.
Right. So
right, that usually
trouble
helps us
falling
start.
asleep is called initial, is it? Initial insomnia. And trouble staying asleep, like getting up at 4:30 in the morning, that's called terminal insomnia, and that does not mean it is deadly.
Right.
But it just,
people don't actually die from insomnia.
The terminus of your sleep, you can't really complete it as long as would be healthful for you. And so we kind of get a history that way, and that's helpful because the people who wake up too early, often that's depression.
Right. Sometimes they have a lot of adrenaline, anxiety.
That's, I think, the initial insomnia. You just can't let go of the day. You can't let go of all the different things you've been thinking of.
And there's a whole other group who will wake up with panic attacks or nightmares like PTSD or hot flashes. Things like that can cause them to wake up and they really can't sleep for a while.
Hot flashes is a huge one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of different reasons why. So I guess when we start talking about it, we try to get at what the reason is, because then if you can remove that reason, that's certainly better than just, giving somebody a pill.
Right, and you'll probably hear this more than once, but giving medication is not our first thought when we're trying to solve a problem. It is one of our thoughts, but we usually are trying to give an individualized approach to patients. So
the spouse that's doing the snoring, he might not actually be getting restorative sleep either.
No.
He might need a CPAP machine or something.
A CPAP machine, or might benefit from one of those breathe right strips, which has saved many marriages.
Treats the couple.
Yes. All right.
Okay, so people come in though, some folks would really like to just get the pill. Thank you very much. I don't want to learn about how to relax and things like that. I just want to take the pill, go to bed.
And especially for people who want to try something natural, I think melatonin is a good place to start. Melatonin is something that our brains make every night to help us prepare to sleep, and it burns off during the night so we don't have a sleep hangover when we wake up in the morning, and we can actually take it as a supplement. Most people don't take enough of it. A lot of bottles come in 3 to 5 milligram tablets, even 1 milligram tablet. Most adults need 5 milligrams to start. As we get older, we need more and more melatonin to help us go to sleep. And so it's not unusual after age 50 for people to need 10 milligrams. Up to 20 milligrams is actually considered all right. So I do have some 60, 65, 80-year-olds who do take 20 milligrams. The way I usually recommend it is to, if they're willing to do this, is to take it 2 nights on, 1 night off. 2 nights on, 1 night off. And the reason for that is your body tends not to get dependent on it, and you tend not to have to increase the dose over time. So it's one way to use a medicine long term, and that's true for a lot of sleeping medicines. Even if you use something over the counter like Benadryl or Unisom or something like that, 2 nights on, 1 night off actually makes the medicine work better for you long term.
And melatonin, as you said, is something your own brain makes, and it makes it when the sun goes down. Isn't that interesting? So sun goes down, your brain makes melatonin, but as you get older, your brain doesn't make it so well. So that's why some of our older folks are having trouble with insomnia.
And we're learning so much about it. You probably have already done this on your computer. My computer now has a different lighting after sunset to help me relax and make melatonin and go to sleep at night.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yes.
So there's let me see, is it called Flux?
Flux, yes,
Yes,
I think
Flux
so.
is a free program that people can install on their computer to automatically change the lighting, and most people's phones have settings like that that they can easily do without another app.
So when you think about it, what we're doing nowadays in, watching TV during the evening, having screen time, having all this light coming at our eyes is very unnatural.
Yes, it disturbs our circadian rhythms.
So doing something like those programs will help, and taking a little melatonin will help. Melatonin is something we can give to people over 65, and
Yes.
also trazodone. What's your experience with trazodone?
I've had really good experiences with trazodone. I first heard about trazodone from the orthopedics department where I work. For years, this medicine's been around over 75 years. When it was first developed, they thought it was going to be a great antidepressant, and it failed. Flunked. It was just taken off the market pretty much. And several years later, someone said to the FDA, well, doesn't it help people sleep? And they said, well, you can test it and see. And sure enough, it does help people to sleep. So now you can prescribe it for sleep in the United States. You can't write it for anything else. It still has the old designation. It's still in that category under antidepressants, but you can't prescribe it for that. In fact, I think really, if it has an antidepressant effect, it's probably more just that people get a couple good nights sleep, they will feel better.
Right.
And all.
Right.
So orthopedics was using it for years when we were trying other more modern sleeping pills and having good success with it. They would especially use it for people who had chronic pain, who were expecting to have surgery. And the idea was then, after they had their surgery and their pain went down, they didn't want them to be hooked on a sleeping pill. And they found that trazodone did not seem to cause dependency. You can also adjust the dosage quite a bit. I've used, well, you'll have to talk with your doctor about that because they're going to prescribe it. But you can find your own dose. The downside is, because it is an old pill and no one's modernized it, is that it does work a little slowly. So some people find taking it, they have to take it half an hour or an hour before bed.
But
What's your experience with trazodone?
We can give it to the quite elderly folks, and so
Yes,
we
we
have it for
can.
our people in the nursing homes. My mom, who's in her 90s, has it prescribed in the nursing home.
Yes, there's this thing called the Beers List.
Right, the Beers List tells us what we can't prescribe for anybody over 65. So, and the reason is because it's going to, all these things have additive sort of somnolence or depressing of the central nervous system, so that you'd be more likely to fall.
Right.
So we don't want our
Falls,
elderly folks to fall.
disorientation, memory problems, dry mouth, confusion. They're just more and more side effects that people have as they get older when they try to use those kinds of medicines. So we don't have very many. Is there another medicine that you'd like to use?
Well, for younger people, we can, that's the over-the-counter medicines. ZQuil, for instance, is really Benadryl. Most of them are Benadryl.
They are. They're with different names, yes.
Yeah, and if you can take it, then that's fine. Some people don't tolerate it very well. I don't like it. I wake up thinking I've had some kind of bad trip or something. When I'm
Some
on
people
Benadryl.
feel a little spacey or hyper
Yeah.
even, but
Yeah.
most people like it.
Yeah, but for you older folks who might be watching this, it's on the Beers List. You can't have it.
It's not a good idea.
Yeah. So some of the antihistamines will make you tired.
Yes.
So Benadryl, Atarax,
Atarax is an old one, a good one.
and Unisom.
Unisom, that's doxylamine.
Is that a decongestant or an antihistamine?
I have to go look it up.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an antihistamine. I'm going to feel really ignorant right now. I was
Yeah.
feeling really proud that I remembered it was
I
called
revealed our
doxylamine.
ignorance.
Yes, but it's over the counter, so
Yeah.
most people feel like
Okay,
it's
so
pretty
that's
safe to
for
take.
young people. You can always try that out. There's a pretty interesting thing that I just heard about. And it's like training you to fall asleep. So what I've always said to my patients, I think it's a skill to fall asleep. I think it's a skill to kind of let go of the day, to let go of everything, and our
Yes.
society just doesn't do that really well. And so this is kind of training you in a way. There's something you can get, I don't even know the name of it, I just saw an ad on the internet, and it's a little, like a light you can put on your bedside table.
Okay.
With a blue dot on it, and it shines a blue dot on the ceiling. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to breathe with the dot. The dot
Yes,
goes
I've
in,
heard of this.
dot
The
goes
5
out.
seconds breath, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so you're concentrating on sort of like a, I don't know, yoga kind of thing, that you're trying to breathe with this light. And so you can't really think about all the things that you are worried about.
Worried about, yes.
Because you have to pay attention to the dot. And it's going to entrain your breathing. You heard the word entrain?
Yes, which affects your heart rate.
Right. So
It's a chain
entraining means that you're doing something with one part of your body to make another part of your body come along for the ride.
Yes.
And do what you want to do. In this case, relax.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that sounded like a brilliant idea. There's another one you can get on your iPhone or whatever smartphone you have I think it's called brainwaves. And you can turn that on, and it's entraining your brainwaves. And it's going, can't really hear it very well, but it's in, that you're not really,
It's a low level of
low
hearing.
level of volume.
Okay.
And it's kind of going woo, woo, woo. And it's purporting to entrain your brain waves to get into the right kind of waves for a good sleep. And I have used it for naps. You can just dial in however long a nap, and as you know, there's different stages of sleep.
Yes.
And this says, okay, we're going to divide this up like this so that you're ready to wake up.
That sounds very nice.
Yeah, at the end of it. It's not going to make it, your alarm clock doesn't go off in the middle of your deepest sleep.
Uh-huh.
So
Nice.
that's kind of an interesting
Well,
thought,
that sounds like an advance over the. We used to recommend some CDs that were visualization tapes to people.
Those are
to
good
listen
too,
to.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They get to be very pleasant. People start feeling sleepier sooner and sooner because they've had good experiences in the past with going to sleep on them.
Mm-hmm.
That kind
There's
of thing.
everything from, listen to birds and falling water,
Mhm.
which to me, for our people a lot of people who are uptight, not enough probably. But to me, something like listening to a story, especially if it's not the most exciting story in the world,
Right, you wouldn't want like
can't-
suspense, horror.
Right. So, but if you're listening to a nice story, you can fall asleep in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's programs that will let you stay on only for 8 minutes or 15 or 30 minutes or whatever, however long you think it's going to take you to fall asleep, and then it stops, so it's not going to wake you up later.
I think I was lucky early on in college to just stumble on a couple of things that helped me go to sleep, and so they became habits. So I didn't know I had good sleep
What
hygiene.
helps you go to sleep?
Well, I learned that I shouldn't exercise too close to bed
Okay.
because then I feel great and I don't feel like going to sleep for quite a while. My heart rate needs
you're
to settle down
energized, yeah.
a little bit, so usually I don't exercise within 2 hours of bedtime. Reading is great, but it shouldn't be the most exciting book. Learned that. And all. I really trained myself to go to sleep by reading 5 minutes, 15 minutes every night. That really settles me in for the night. We don't watch TV right before bed because it's sometimes too stimulating, or I want to stay up and watch another show. So it can't be too interesting. I do not read any newspapers. I do not read anything. I do not read email. I do not look at Facebook. I don't read anything that might be controversial and upset me before I go to bed. If I start to think about finances or other things, I have a pad of paper by my side of the bed, and I write down what it is. And to me, that tells my brain, I will pay attention to it, just not right now. And I find that just writing it down has a huge impact, because I've tried times where I didn't have a pad of paper and said, oh yeah, I will remember that. I have to pay that bill, or I have to call the insurance company.
Tell people to write it down. Make sure you have a little pad by your bed and write it down. There's a visualization thing for worry. That's like that, where you imagine a huge blackboard and you write down all the things that you're concerned about. And you keep going along and writing it all the way down, and when you get to the bottom of the chalkboard, then you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to go to the top again now. I'm going to get the eraser out, and I'm going to start erasing each of these things. And by the time you get to the bottom, you're usually asleep. So, it's...
When I was younger, and especially when I lived on my own, I was very good at hearing noises in the house, and I would get nervous, and it was very hard for me to go to sleep at night. And I think that's one reason why people like white noise machines. That helps. But I also was taught by my mother to read some Bible verses or read the Psalms. And that is extremely helpful. That has helped me through some very difficult times. To have the last thoughts before I go to bed are comforting thoughts about God being with me, or just a favorite psalm from the Bible. And I hate to say it, but reading my Bible can also sometimes make me sleepy.
Yes, yes. Well, I think that's fine.
It helps.
If you were God, I think you wouldn't mind being used like that. Yeah. But what about, okay, we haven't really talked about the other pills, the bad pills, like all the...
Oh boy, so do you have an Ambien story?
Oh, I have so many Ambien stories.
I'd love to hear one of your Ambien stories.
Oh gosh, okay. Do you want a funny one or a bad one?
How about a funny one first?
Okay, funny one first. My friend, who I did not prescribe the Ambien to, thank goodness, but she was getting Ambien from her doctor, and went to the door one day. Somebody was knocking on the door, and she opened the door, and they brought her the packages that she had ordered during the night from Shopping Network. From Online Shopping Network. So she got up in the night and ordered things and had no memory of having ordered them. So they're a group of medicines that can give you complete amnesia.
Amnesia afterwards. So did her sleeping self have good taste? Was she happy with the things?
I don't know.
That is terrible.
That was the funny one. Yeah.
Okay.
The bad
one.
One bad one.
One
bad one was a 65-year-old guy. Again, I did not order this for him, but he woke up in the morning with a pain in his shoulder, and he went to the top of the stairs and looked down, and there was broken crockery at the bottom of the stairs, and he had no memory at all of this, but he'd gotten up, gone downstairs, had something to eat, and this is a typical thing, people eat too much in the night, and on his way up with his crockery coming up back to he fell down all the stairs, fractured his scapula.
Oh, shoot.
That is a thick bone.
That's a terrible,
That's a really hard to fracture.
Yes.
He fractured his scapula and did not remember it.
That's exceptional.
Yes.
When I was in residency, some of these medicines were just coming out. We heard about Ambien and Lunesta. And the policy where we were doing residency was, we don't want to be the first people to adopt a new medicine, but we don't want to be the last one either. Let's wait 1 or 2 years and see how the American public does. And very quickly we decided that Ambien was not going to be a medicine that we wanted to promote. There are some special uses for it. Psychiatry uses it. There are certain situations where people will use it. But you have to have so many warnings around it. It's just not practical for people to use long term. I'm afraid none of the newer medicines to date has made me comfortable enough that I could write it as a long-term prescription.
No.
I more want to deal with the root causes and consider something like trazodone if they're just not getting good sleep.
Right. And then there's the benzodiazepines,
so
time-honored tranquilizers.
Yes, and at times abused. And at first, people didn't know. People didn't know that long-term there could be different effects than short-term benefits. Like when let me see, it starts with a V. What was the most famous?
Valium.
Valium. Who knew that it had such a long half-life and was so addictive? When they did short-term studies, it looked like it was a great medicine. It's a fantastic sedative, not one I'd want to use on a regular basis for patients. There are short-acting ones. Those can be extremely addictive. Xanax is one of the most popular. Those can be very difficult to get off of. Once a person has gotten habituated to using that every night for sleep, very difficult to get off of. And many people find after a period of time that they need to increase the dose. And then they're in trouble.
And you don't dream with them.
Well, yes, it affects your sleep, it affects your alertness the next day. Mm-hmm. And then there's the short-term memory concerns, especially for seniors who are mm-hmm. using benzodiazepines. Mm-hmm. So, once, to take it once the night before surgery or something is one thing, but to take it as a solution, it's just not a good solution.
Yeah, they've always told us that it's a short-term solution. Yes. Like I think it's okay, for instance, for a widow to take some, the period, coming up to
when
the funeral and afterwards, or, a short-term,
right,
this is going to be a 3-week type thing. Mm-hmm. But as a plan to treat your insomnia or to treat your anxiety, it's not a good plan.
Right. Insomnia is closely related to, nowadays, people's problem with not getting enough sleep because they're too busy.
Yes.
And they get by on too little sleep.
I know.
I don't know how many people you wonder about when you're driving to work or driving home from work and wonder, did that person get a good night's sleep? Are they texting? Or did they have alcohol? Mm-hmm. Or what happened? Mm-hmm. It really is a growing problem. And I'm hoping that as people become more aware of the importance of our circadian rhythms and doing things like changing the screen on your computer and things like that, they'll see that ultimately we're more productive and we're happier if we get enough sleep. If we don't, it's much easier to get depressed, to have accidents, to make mistakes at work, to not be patient with your spouse or with friends or coworkers or things like that. Life is really better when you get enough sleep. And I guard my sleep pretty jealously because I mm-hmm. love being alert. Mm-hmm. If you stay up really late at night, a lot of times, you know this from residency, the next day, how many times did I say, I'm doing pretty well for someone who had half an hour, 2 hours of sleep. First of all, I wasn't doing as well as I thought, but also there's the second day rule. The next day, no matter how much sleep you get, you have to pay back some of that debt, and your body makes you pay for it.
There's a sleep deficit. Yes, there is, mm-hmm. and I think you pay for it somehow. There was even one of the lectures I went to showed us a graph of sleep time, how long people sleep, mm-hmm. and there's a section there, 7 to 9 hours, had the fewest heart attacks.
Yes.
So people with too little or too much mm-hmm. sleep were having more heart attacks.
They handle stress better. They tend to live longer. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And again, something to do with letting go. With saying there's a limit to how productive we can be.
Mm-hmm. We're human, darn it. Yes. All right.
Okay. Thank you for
listening. That
listening.
wraps up another session.